Okay, so Brent's gonna take the table that Steve and Ann created for the card database, and we're going to import that data, the Excel spreadsheet, into a CSV format, import it into PHP-MyAdmin, and then show how to extract data from that and display it in a PHP code. Is that correct, Brent? That's the process?
Yes.
Okay.
We'll get the extract, import, and then we'll write the code to pull from the actual database. Yep.
Great.
All right, so I'm going to share my screen. Just to kind of sidestep any installation issues right now, we're just going to log into the iPage server. You guys have done that before, and I believe I'm just going to double check, but I know iPage supports database applications. I know you can install like even WordPress or other things on it, like other content frameworks with databases. So I just want to make sure our account supports it. Then we'll have the same access to like PHP-MyAdmin and all that kind of stuff. We can write code that connects to the server and just upload it via FTP. So first step is to check that it works. So iPage, I'm just going to go to login. You guys have done this, so I'm not going to go too slow here. Stop me if you do have any questions, but I assume this stuff is like simple at this point. Okay, so sign into the control panel. Now, back in the day, you may have logged in to do something with File Manager or to do FTP and stuff. Here, I'll slow down slightly. I know you guys have probably done maybe File Manager and or FileZilla or something to drag and drop files. But all hosting companies will have a dashboard, and on the dashboard, they'll give you more options than just File Manager. So you can actually get to a page where you can set up a database user, install a database, and that kind of stuff, just like a overall control panel. Make sense? Right.
Yes. This is in lieu, just for everyone who's listening in, other than Ann and Steve, this is in lieu of setting up a MAMP or WAMP server locally. We're going to just use a server that's already set up.
And now iPage has a design feature I dislike, which is they nest a lot of stuff inside of these 9 squares. Kind of looks like a phone, like, app button. Makes sense, but I think they also kind of are disconnected from some of the older audience with that. But just so you know, to get to more of their tools, it's just right in here. Now, within here, you'll see MySQL database. We should see a PHP-MyAdmin or something. Let's just take a look. Host and advanced tools. All right, so let's just go into MySQL database. I suspect that there will be a view in PHP-MyAdmin option if we go in here. So yeah, okay, let's see what these are. Access to PHP-MyAdmin. So basically, inside of here, there's a bunch of databases, very properly named, like DIY Brent delete me as the first one. I don't know who made that, probably me. So probably a demo much like this, right? Basically, there's a main user. You can add users. And let me slow down a little bit just to make sure I explain this whole part, because I showed you guys how to do it locally with the server already set up. When we have the database credentials, right, in the code we wrote and I demoed to you guys, it connects to the host, which is like the server. Then you have username, password, and port number. The host and port number basically just make sure it's connecting to the server, the correct port. But the username and the password, you can have more than one database user for a database. And there's a logic to that. It's not just like so people have separate logins, but there's actual security implications. You can have like your public code, right? The application, it might have a user that can only read the data, but not write data. That way people can't, add new stuff to the database. If it's just like a read-only user, it can't execute query, like certain scripts and stuff like that. You can basically lock down that user. right? For just the bare minimum. Then you can have like a, top level super admin user that can do anything they want, that maybe you come in and do it back here. So for what we're doing, I'm more of a fan of just saying make frequent backups, or we'll automate backups at some point. Let's not overthink the security side, but I just want to let you know that that's why you'll see an icon like this, add new user. You'll have add new database. You'll have the access and stuff. Set privileges would be for El Brento. I didn't even see that. This is going to be a great video, John. Okay, so let's make a new database. And this database, will give it a name. Let's just call it artist cards. Would that be fair?
Well, we have several people doing it, so let's call it Steve Art Card, Steve S&A. Art Cards, S&A.
All right, so with PHP, when we're doing database stuff, I know we always say hyphens typically, but I noticed in PHP code, certain parts of it, underscores work better in the actual code at certain times. So that's why you'll see underscores here. So art cards, SA, or actually we could do S and A. Oops. Like that.
Okay.
I'm gonna put these in a notepad file as we kind of run through this, and then we can put this into like an email and document it also. So when we put database name like this, as a heads up, hosting providers sometimes will add a prefix, like something to do with your account number or something to it. That way, let's say there's another person that for some reason has like art cards, like artist cards, so I should have done. Oops. But yeah, basically, let's say somebody else wants to make the exact same name. By doing this whole thing with the prefix, I'm assuming it's going to happen. This will get something we have to add to it before we actually use it in the code. Username, we can just call it art database or something. Let's call it art DB user. And again, this is going to be in our code. It doesn't have to be something easy to remember. And honestly, sometimes the more complex a password or something, the better, depending on what you're doing. And this is going to be stored in code. It's not like we actually log in and deal with it more than once. So password, let's just do like Garth, artist 617 Bob. Let someone try and guess that, right? Let's throw an exclamation point in there. Okay, uppercase, lowercase, numbers, and something that doesn't make any sense. That should be a strong password. All right, so we have database name, a user, password. We have it over here to store it. We'll add database. Now, let's see what happens here. All right, this cards. Okay, this is cool. So, all right, so this one actually just, because the server has the subdomain, basically our server name, our domain name, I mentioned universe.com, right? That's kind of our login without the dot, right? This is a subdomain. So basically it doesn't need a prefix, but this would be the server that we should enter in as like the host. So, okay, so there's host. And when I was talking about port, we don't need to worry. I'm thinking like FileZilla. That's just me being tired at night. We don't need to worry about port number on this for the connection to the code. All right, so this is set up. ArtDB user. We can now click on this, access PHP MyAdmin. It should look very familiar. When you have a local server running and then you have this running, sometimes you'll see something that maybe looks a little washed down depending on the server you're on or something. But this looks good. Let's see. Server connection. Art user. So I just like to copy some of the extra stuff in case we get errors. So like we should be able to log in with just our username like this. but just in case, I've seen so many variations of things that I just sometimes will rip a little extra data, so later I don't have to go look for it if I see it. Like server one, yeah, I'll just copy that in case too. I don't think we'll need that. I think this will be fine, but just in case. All right, so now what we did last time is we just go to import, right? We're on our database. Click that first. Then we can go to import. I'm going to choose file. And I know, actually, let me just check the file location from chat real quick. Where's on meeting control? I'm missing the meeting controls. Oh, there they are, other side. Sorry, dual monitor. Let's see, chat. Oh, find in folder. Here we go. Okay, so I just want to make sure where I saved it to. For some reason, I saved it inside of another folder that was like a Thai food restaurant I worked on. Let's see, so DIY folder. So let's go back to iPage. I'm going to choose file. It's on my desktop inside of my croissants folder. Let me filter, go in here, DIY. For some reason I put it in there, but here's our artist database. I'm just going to rename it to just be, let's see, art cards, just so it should import with that name. Just get rid of the spaces, uppercase, and so on before I import it. Let's see. Oh, and this, let me just see if we can do Excel. I'm going to quickly export that into a CSV from there. So the same way before, we did from Google, right? We export it as a CSV. We can do that from Excel, same thing. So we have project title. All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna, for the sake of like, this is sample data anyways, I'm just gonna drag and drop, like basically just copy some stuff. We can't, what? Oh, I just renamed it. Okay, that doesn't like me because I renamed it. Let's see. There we go. So I'm just gonna fill in some of the blanks. So as we pull in data, like we'll get data in the columns for any of them. There we go. And then we have nothing on these ones, and then let's just do. Man, I'm trying to think of a color that we don't have there, but as I'm looking through, I'm like, no, it's there. Let's just do magenta. There we go. Okay, so now okay, and let's just do a tag.
Do you have images, Steve and Ann, that are named these? Do you have real?
These are real images.
Okay, good. Okay.
And let's see. This should be fine now. With Excel, sometimes, I don't know if this will mess anything up, but sometimes in Excel, I notice Microsoft will like always add in extra rows and columns, and it's hard to see where it really ends. Whereas with like Google Sheets, you can actually delete columns and really zero into the data. So I'm going to try to export this just to see if it will grab the right data. But if we wind up with like some empty columns or something like that on the end, I've sometimes used Google Sheets just to clean before I make a CSV, but I think it should be fine. We'll find out together. Okay, so CSV, art cards in the same folder, save, and say okay. So basically, it doesn't support multiple. If you're in Excel, right, and you save to a CSV, CSV is comma separated values like we talked about. what will happen is if you save something as a CSV and close it, thinking, okay, my data saved, if you ignore that pop-up, basically it will just flatten all your data into whatever worksheet you're currently on, and it will just discard the rest, right? So if I close this now, which is fine because we have the original, and I open the CSV file, you'll see my tabs are gone, any formatting is gone, even the column sizes, right? Because the actual save file is just like a value, comma, right? Line break, next row. So just to understand that structure, I've made the mistake of thinking I'm saving multiple tabs and I lose something with the CSV, and I've never forgotten since then. It's a good learning experience. All right, so from here, choose file. I'll go desktop, songs, go on here, DIY, CSV. All right, now you see it auto detects it's CSV. All this, let me just see. One thing I did notice, let me just double check. I noticed that we had some non-English characters. I think it was in the second. Yeah, this would be fine for this, but I recently worked on a website in Farsi or Persian, and I noticed and sometimes even just with data sets that are like outside the USA, like German and so forth, where it's like a non English traditional character, the encoding is a little different. So you can actually change your database to accept any kind of character. So if that becomes a thing, it's very easy to fix. So don't worry if you import something with like, Chinese characters, you go to pull the data and it comes back with a bunch of like diamonds with question marks in it. That happens, and we know how to fix it. So don't worry about that. I think it was, let's see. This might be the like something that would bounce back funny, and I'll show you that after we get this imported. All right, so let's see. So we have the data down here. We're gonna say the first line of the file contains the column names. So we check that off. And I think everything else is okay. So we'll click go. And hopefully we just see a green message at the end. That's very positive. This doesn't look like it brought in anything funny at a glance, but we'll go over to the table. And it doesn't look like, let's just see. Yes, this number of rows 25. So we don't see any like awkward data. It cuts off perfect. Titles. Okay, one thing that I see that's messed up. This is missing just the first letters here, but everything else looks okay. So that's an easy fix. We just go to structure. And I believe we can click change on this and then just edit the name. And what was it? Project title, right? I believe. That's happened to me before, and from importing via CSV. I don't know exactly the cause, but it's only ever like messed up the first like letter or two on like a column. So it's, I've never thought enough to try to figure out why it happens, because it's such an easy fix. Okay, and then the other thing. Okay, so table. Okay, so where you see collate and character set, this is the type of thing where we can change it. Let's see. There's like a UTF-8 bin or something like that, but I think maybe on the database itself. You know what? Let's deal with, let me just see. We'll deal with that when we get a little further for the to deal with the characters when we go to the artist. That way we can get to the queries. So we have the data imported, we have the data set up, we have the credentials to log in. So now we should technically be able to just go to our old code that we wrote the other week. Let's see, ramp, www, DIY. And I think it was this file. Let me just open that and we'll check it together. Yes, and that extra stuff wasn't anything important. I was hoping John had audio files. I just never, it was right after the webcast on Sunday. So, all right. So don't worry about that code I deleted. It was irrelevant to the class. All right. So here we have the well-commented code, username and password, right? We're going to update those with these values. So username, let's try it without the, at and like the domain and all this weird stuff. Let's just see if when we connect to the server, if it recognizes the simple ones. And if not, we can try to troubleshoot, but username. Hey, Ricky.
Hi, Ricky.
Hey guys, wow, we have a big party today.
Yeah,
Awesome, awesome.
great. Brent's just guiding Ann and Steve through setting up their database.
Excellent, excellent. Wow, you guys are setting up database already. Advanced stuff, okay?
We're trying.
All right. So I swapped out the, also notice I messed up something right here. If you look at the color coding, it's good if you're using some sort of text editor that color codes for you, because you can catch errors a lot faster. When I pasted in the username, I accidentally erased the second quotation, and you notice that everything turns gray until this quotation. You're supposed to wrap like a string with double quotes. So now you see everything lights back up the right color. So if you ever see your code get like all gray and funky looking when it's not normally like that, look for a syntax error like that. But yeah, so we got username, password, those are swapped out. And then database we swapped out. Now, as we put in this note localhost is the host, and it may be different when using certain, right? Now that's for when we do the local setup, but localhost has to get swapped out to the actual server now, since we're on the internet, right? We got to point to the real server. So I think this should be the host. We'll find out together. Let's see. Yeah, I'm not 100% confident. Sometimes things don't give you the exact configuration. That's correct. But for now, good enough, right? Now, realistically, normally I would check if this works, but also since we're gonna pull some data, it's already, these might give us errors because they're not existent columns, right? So, oh yeah, and hi Pablo is Sunday class also, when you see that pop up. So this was the loop, the while loop that then, grabs stuff from the array and then spits it out, like echoes it into HTML down below. These columns don't exist. And what's inside these, square brackets and the quotes refer to the column. So let's look at our, current one, right? And we have project title, artist, date submitted, tag, and so on. Now, one thing that I don't normally have spaces. I didn't actually catch that to put underscores and stuff. I'm assuming it should be fine since that's the column name and it matches. So let's just try it and see if it gives an error, but as we go further, we'll update that. But let's grab a few without spaces just to test, make sure we can connect to the database first, minimize our potential for errors, right? Then we'll go back through and tweak. So that we have, I know the tag category is filled out completely. And then image dash front. Let's use that. And obviously, I know that's not everything we need to pull in, but this is just a quick test. I'm minimizing variables in the sense that I want to see this, and we're going to have to troubleshoot the connection first. Then we'll deal with pulling in the other data and modifying this. But if you try to test too many things at once, your eyes will cross, your tongue will pop out, and your ears will have smoke.
You can learn a lot just by following how Brent troubleshoots, how he solves a problem.
And if you don't, if your eyes crossed, tongue sticks out, and smoke comes out your ears, don't come complain. No, I'm just kidding. All right, so we're gonna save as, and I'm just gonna name it. I'm just gonna call it. I'll just call it test.php for the time being, and save this. Inside of my, let's see, is this the WAMP one? Okay, so now we have test.php that this file is. Inside of our, let me get back onto the, here we are. Inside of here, right, we need to upload the file. Now that has nothing to do with the database. This is gonna be like file manager or FTP. I'm going to be very lazy and we're just gonna go to file manager because it's a single file. So file manager, and I will just drop it for now inside of my old Brent folder. If you mess up the Brent folder, I don't care. I can slap up an HTML site, and these are always just demos when I'm doing demos, for the most part. So don't worry. Okay, so browse. WAMP, www. DIY.
Server, Ann and Steve, where you stored your personal websites, right? So we want to be careful not to overwrite anyone else's personal websites.
This is weird. I don't see my PHP files. Let's do all files. Okay, so for some reason they didn't list PHP files and they're able to upload things, but if you just go to all files, if you're on Windows, it should work. I'm assuming the web browser that you guys have on Mac might also default to something, and then if you go to all files, it would show up. Let me just show you that steps so make sure I didn't go too quick there. So I'm confused. I'm like, where's my PHP files? And then I realized it's just this, and then it still worked fine. It's uploaded. All right, so we have our test.php uploaded. It's inside the /Brent folder. So now let's go to invention-universe.com. Let's just make sure that's the right. Okay, oh, that's just forwards. Okay, cool. So invention-universe.com/Brent. Let's see. Okay, there's me with my protective gear. All right, from there we'll go to test.php. Hi, Pablo. No data. All right. So
That's me.
bless you. That means there's an error going on for sure. So you can tell it to display errors. Our file loaded, but something's definitely wrong. So let's just take a look at.
Does the file loaded mean that we've connected properly to the server?
It means that our actual PHP file loaded, and it says hi Pablo, but everything that's dynamic didn't work.
Okay.
So it's not given an error. So I'm gonna look to see, there's a code you can say to show errors.
Mhm.
So I'm just gonna Google, and again, I don't remember code stuff. I just know how to find it. So my thought process is MySQL is the connection type. That's the function. So MySQL, let's just say show errors or show debug, right? We'll do a quick Google search, and that should just tell us what line of code we got to paste in there. So MySQL show error, right? And then MySQL error function. So if MySQL connection error echo, and then that's like the dot to join two things. So like in if you're doing Excel, it's like the ampersand, I think it is, when you're adding two strings or two cells or something. You guys have probably seen it somewhere, but basically what this is doing is, here's a text string, right? So I know what is coming next, and then this is a actual returning the error and displaying the error. So what I'm gonna do is, let's just see, do they have a try? They don't this time. Okay, but exit means it will stop executing the code, but first it's gonna echo the error. This is perform a query, check for error. If MySQL insert MySQL error. Let me just close MySQL. So this has all the credentials, right? So it has like server, username, password, database name. If, and then MySQL right, is making a connection. So it runs this when it, when this is called. Then connection error. This is here. All right, so I guess this is just like a secondary test or something. I think we just need this part. That's what I'm kind of seeing through the code. So let's just come over here, MySQL. So right after the connection, we'll just say if error show. And that should be fine. Let's just give it a test. And also, I don't think you actually have to use MySQL as the variable. This is just a generic variable, I believe. So I could call this Bob, call it Steve, call it Ann with the $sign before it. So this that I ripped off the internet just happens to be common practice to use the same thing because it's a MySQL connection, right? But if for some reason somebody named it something different in a code sample, this could mess you up, right? If this was like MySQL 1, it wouldn't work. So it has to run this to connect, and then this will give the error for that. Basically, it just has to be the same variable name in short. Okay, so I'm going to save this, and I'm going to go back to our file manager, and I'm going to overwrite test. Now, one thing I notice weird with iPage sometimes is it almost seems like there's a lag, like they do some weird caching on the server side. That's probably more true with HTML files, but if it doesn't like change at all, I learned with iPage sometimes give it like 60 seconds before like, getting mad at it. And if you have a dynamic file and you're like, oh, I'm trying to show an error, but I can't see it. Two things. One, let's go to developer tools, right? You can press F12 or right click, inspect. And then you can go to network and make sure caching is disabled. That will sometimes help clear things out. Now, I don't know if my new code is executing because there's nothing visually different. So in my code, I could change that human visible part to like update 1 or something like that. So if I save that, then I'll be able to know for sure that it uploaded correctly. So let me. Okay, so we know that's running. So now we know our error, to show the error didn't work. So this is saying return the last error description for the most recent function call, if any. Let's see, perform a query, check for error, echo field. So this should show something. Let's just see, failed to connect. MySQL, that's connection. Procedural oriented style. MySQL connect. So our method of connection, let's just check, because there's more than one way to make a connection. New MySQL. Let's just make sure. New MySQL. Okay, so we're using the same thing as this example. All right, so we have a connection. I'm not sure why this is not error ERR and O. I wonder if that is something weird. Connect error no. I wonder if that's like, I never seen a typo on W3 schools in my life. No, it seems like it's a thing. Okay, I would assume that that's accurate. Let's just take a look over here. Okay, so if MySQL connect error. So I just want to see another example. So we have MySQL, new MySQL A is used to suppress default error messages. We're not trying to have it. We don't have anything suppressing errors from what I can tell. That's the thing that can happen. Like basically it just suppressing an error means that if it throws some errors, you just hide them. So that way the front end doesn't look bad to a user. But when you're debugging, you want to see that type of stuff. If exclamation point $ link preferred error login method here. Procedural style. So I'm not quite sure. I want to see I don't want to just start guessing and swapping out usernames and stuff like that and host names without seeing the actual errors. Echo field to connect. So it should at least tell us that we didn't connect, even if it's weird that it's not like spitting out something for us to see. So what we're going to do is let's just look up this not working and see what comes up. Error on my error. Okay. New connection. I'm using the latest version answers. This isn't a function. So just take away the brackets around both your code. Okay, so if error. Okay, that basically saying the same thing. Echo this and then DB. Okay, so connect error. This is something to do with like line breaks or something. That's not critical. I'm gonna exit. This is kind of throwing me off, I'm not gonna lie. Let's see. You know, the other thing we could try to do is we could just try to mess up the username on purpose and then just see maybe it is connecting and there's an error down below with our results or code down below. So instead of assuming we're not connecting correctly, I'm just gonna mess this up. Put this as update 2 so we know it updates. So we can visually see the file updated. And just see if this gives us a connection error. Because this is basically saying there's no error if it skips over this. So it's jumping over this. This is only true if there's an error. So before I start thinking something's wrong with this code, let's just see if this is perfect, but something's not running. Okay, here's the problem. Let's not even mess with this. It took me a second. Sorry, guys. The query, we don't have this table anymore. This table does not exist. That's the problem. So we don't have an error. All of this is working perfect. The error is me, and the table needs to be updated. And we have category like junk. So we don't have categories entered, nor do we have this table. So this should fix it perfectly. Sorry about that, but I guess that's good troubleshoot. Like it's good to see that anyways.
Definitely.
I'm gonna rename this. Well, let's just copy this table name. Select from table 1.
So the way Brent is thinking, guys, is the way a good programmer thinks. It's really interesting to watch you troubleshoot, Brent.
Thanks. Let's see. So I'm just gonna run a like a browse, or actually this already has it. Select all from table 1, right? So basically it just deletes this. This is that condition, right? We don't need that. What I'm gonna do is just comment it out so we have it for later. And then we'll just delete the condition. So now it's select the asterisk is all from, and then the table name and those little, weird quote things. And then we close it. So this should work. And let's recall this update 2 so we know that it's running. Let's see, file manager, upload, browse. Hey, okay, stuff.
Oh.
Yeah, it was just one really simple user error. But now, you know what? Our code is improved because of my mistake. Now we have a method for it to show us errors if we connect wrong. So that's always good to have something that can return some feedback if you have a problem.
Good, 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 good. Wow. Well, let me start. Ann and Steve, there's a lot to take in one time, for sure. But we have the recording of it, so we can review it again and again and again. I think, Steve, we have to be more precise in the way we specified the table. I noticed, for example, there was one date that was an illegal format, and there's a lot of blanks in the table. So I think we need to have good data. Let's work on that together without Brent, making sure our table is complete. Then we're going to need to store the images and set up a file structure so we can access and display the images. Correct, Brent? We're going to need to upload all of your images.
And as we do that, I recommend branching out of the Brent folder. Just use that to look at the code and see it work.
Yeah.
Set up some folder for there's like, on Events Universe, make a subfolder like artist card,
Yep.
something like that. Move this code into there and then,
Okay.
anything. Just so we don't accidentally grow into the wrong folder too deep.
Right.
Set files up front.
Will do. Okay. So, Ann and Steve, any comments here? My head is spinning just watching Brent, so I assume you're. But if you want to get into programming, this is this is a very, very good introduction to what it takes to be a good programmer. Any thoughts or questions you want to share, Ann?
It's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we can go through the recordings after.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Steve, how about on your front?
Yeah, I think mine's same as Anne. Like it's definitely a lot of information that we need to process, especially when like there's a lot of things displayed in front of me and I need to like read what's really important and what's like the abstract.
Right. Okay. Well, we'll try to, Brent, thank you. We'll try to sort through this in the next session or two before we come back to you with a list of questions.
Sounds good.
Give us some time to try it out.
It's notes for you guys.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Good. So we'll adjourn till next week. Be patient. We just gotta, it's like learning a language. It's exactly what we're doing. We're learning a new language. We just gotta keep hearing the vocabulary again and again and again, and eventually it'll sink in.
Yeah.
Okay. It's a lot different from art, huh? It's like the opposite of art. You have to be very precise and you have to be very, very methodical. It really begs a completely different skill set than
Yeah.
the artist skill set. But I think it will be useful for you to see this side of the universe. All right. Ann and Steve, to be continued next week.
Yeah, thank you.
Great. You're welcome.
Thank you, Brent. Thank you,
Thank you,
John.
Brent.
Don't be scared.
Bye.
It'll become easier, I promise.
It will become easier, and then it'll be really fun when you start to see results. The other thing I want to do, Ann and Steve, is make sure that your front end code works. So we don't waste Brent's time troubleshooting the front end. So the HTML and CSS, that has to be really good.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you, Brent.
Bye.
You're welcome.
Good rest of the weekend. Cheers. Bye, Steve. Bye, Ann. Thanks, Ricky, for joining. Good night.
John, actually, would you stop the recording?
Sure.
I don't add to it.